With starter deck 23 through 28 now fully revealed, we can really get a gauge now alongside of OP 11 when they release in a week or so of what cards could be impactful in the meta, the decks that they enhance, etc. We're going to be going over every one of the starter decks and all the impactful cards that are coming from them, especially the ones unique to the decks. And make sure to like, comment, subscribe to hear all of our stuff about not only OP 11 and the starter deck meta that we got coming up in the West, but also OP 12 content that we've got coming, as we usually always cover the Eastern content. But first, let's hear from a word from our sponsor. Our friends over at Nengarnet have officially kicked off the summer sale on their website. Prices are slashed from 10% to 60% across the entire store now. You can pick up some crazy discounts on One Piece based mats like the Heavenly Yaksha, some great anime themed mats like Paranormal Playmat and also the Curse vs. Beast, as well as if you get a Sun God playmat right now while supplies last. Every purchase of this specific Stitched Edge playmat gets a free playmat tube as well to help protect what you love, as well as a brand new pre-order that's dropped in the Pokemon region if you're a fan of Final Boss, which the colors on this are insane, man. I love this design. You can use my code Atrocious to save an extra 5% off and help support the channel, and make sure to grab your new favorite playmat while this sale's going on, because you don't want to miss it. Now, back to the video. Now, the first one that we're going to talk about is the Shanks starter deck, right? Shanks getting a starter deck, minus 1,000 to a leader or character during the turn after your opponent announces an attack. There's a lot of good reprints in this set if you're picking it up and didn't have any Shanks cards for the first time, including Lucky Roo, a very popular card in a lot of Shanks decks, and Yasop. Yasop being a card that's been in plenty of Shanks decks since its release in OP09, along with a couple 2Ks in Lime Juice and also Hongo. One of the new unique cards in this deck, though, is a 1-drop Yasop. It's a 1K counter, 1,000 power. Give a Rested Dawn card to one of your leaders or characters. We've seen this in a couple different iterations, right? Especially in red with the Event Pack Koala, the Starter Deck 01 Nami, and now with the Yasop. The thing to think about with cards like this, though, is how they can synergize with leaders or different characters that a Shanks deck, for example, frequently plays. Now, looking from the recent Top Cut events regional that they had not too long ago, this is kind of a good sample that we can have on if they wanted to include it in what it could synergize with, as most of these cards are pretty popular within Shanks decks. I think Yasop is kind of the clear-cut option that we saw within that deck list, especially with that Dawn ×1 when attacking effect, right? Giving an opponent's character minus 1,000 power for the turn can be nice as like kind of a 2,000 power difference for making your Yasop a 7K, attacking into a 5K if they were both originally 6K bodies. Unfortunately, though, for Shanks specifically, I don't know if the card really fits anywhere else, especially for gaining extra effects that's not just 1,000 power. The only thing that I can really think of is being able on a 10 Dawn turn play this guy down, then use Yasop's effect to attach it to leader in something like the mirror match. So then you can swing 6K with your leader and force a card out of your opponent's hand, right? Before this 1-cost Yasop, when you play down a 10-cost Shanks, if your leader swung 5,000 power at life, all your opposing Shanks leader had to do was just say leader effect, and that would be it. Now, at least if they want to leader effect, they have to give up a 1K as well. So personally, I think I would only really have this card in, like, if you expect a lot of mirror matches, which at least when OP 11 came out, Shanks kind of fell off the map. And we even saw in this Top Cut regional in EBO2 how Shanks took up so much of this portion of the event, and the conversion rate was abysmal. Only one entry in the top 32, and shout out to this person for getting 32nd, but it barely made top 32. So personally, I don't think this is really enough to get Usopp going, but there's plenty of other cards that we can talk about. Now, this Luffy, though, isn't a red-haired pirate, but it's a Film Supernova Straw Hat Crew type card, which is plenty of decks in format. You can rest one of your Dawn cards and this character to give one of your opponent's characters minus 1,000 power for the turn. I don't really like this card, I'm going to be honest. I like Otama a lot better, right? Otama for 1 Dawn going minus 2,000. Even though in the Land of Wano package, it's not searchable for you if you're running pretty much any other deck. It just feels like the two 1,000 power for 1 Dawn is more valuable than 2 Dawn for 1,000 power. That's just my opinion. We've got Ben Beckman here. Ben Beckman is a 4-cost 5,000 power character with an on-play effect for the red-haired pirates. You can trash 1 card from your hand, and if your leader is a red-haired pirates type, which the only red-haired pirates type leader is Shanks in the game, you can KO up to one of your opponent's characters with 4,000 base power or less. I'm not like a huge fan of this card, to be honest, because it's KO a 4,000 base power or less. If we look at different Shanks decks that have been playing since the release of EBO2, a lot of them have kind of transitioned into this like control build, and they have different power minusing effects like Red Force that can put a 5,000 power character in that 4,000 power range consistently. Unfortunately though, because this has base power, you're really only restricted to something like Sanji, to something like Tony Chopper, right? Base power is this number right here. It's not like the power that you look at after it's like the power boost that the Tony Chopper gets on opponent's turn. This card stinks. The first of the 2 SRs is Uta. So this Uta is a film character, and if you have a character with 10,000 power or more, you can give this card in your hand a -4 cost. It's also a nice 2k blocker. The 6/4 stat line is usually pretty bad on a card, but especially in the late game, it could be really nice after you slam down a 10,000 power or more body in the next turn to be able to play this card for only 2 if it lives. If anything, the first thing that I think of and what a lot of people thought of is Red Purple Uta. If you remember my tournament where I actually won like a mini small scale creator tournament with Red Purple Uta, I basically made a Shanks deck that ramped. So especially with the ramping to be able to play your 10-drop Shanks earlier, in the very next turn I can play a 2-drop blocker on the field, so long as that Shanks didn't get removed. Now your blocker is only 4,000 power, so if anything, it's at least in the film kind of package, a 2k that you can utilize for your leader effect to be able to find very easily off maybe like a searcher, Buena Festa I think their name is, the 1-drop purple searcher. So more so Red Purple Uta than anything. The other SR is this 9-drop 10,000 power Shanks. So probably what they were thinking of when talking about that Uta, right? This is the 10,000 power character they were thinking of. If your opponent has a character with 8,000 base power or more, give this card in your hand -3 cost, especially with decks like Blue Purple Luffy, right? Being able to ramp and play out these big bodies so fast, or different decks cheating out characters. An 8,000 power base character may happen early enough to where if you're not a ramp deck like a Shanks deck, you can potentially play this card on a 6 Dawn turn. A 6 Dawn 10,000 power character is insane. But not only that, you have an on-play effect of if your leader has the red-haired pirates type, which is Shanks, your leader gains plus 2,000 power until the end of your opponent's next end phase. Especially with the 6,000 power leaders that we've got in the Blue Purple Luffy, a pseudo 6,000 power leader in Green Purple Luffy, putting your leader at 7,000 power may give you a competitive edge, especially if you can do it earlier in the game, as soon as your opponent plays an 8,000 power character on the field. I feel like this could see a little bit of play in Shanks decks. I don't think it's like insane or incredible, but I do think it's viable enough, because if you look at like this play right here with the Yasop, this on play gives one of your leaders 1,000 power. Why don't I just play something that gives me 2,000 power instead? Now this is a non-counter card and Yasop does have a 1k counter, but it's really interesting to think about the possibilities of the builds that you can do, especially when you're going on the even curve, right? Because this Shanks card being a 9 cost is typically an odd curve card, but if you're facing against a ramp deck, you can actually on the even curve play this card on curve, or playing it on a 6 Dawn turn. I find this to be very interesting. Overall, I feel like there's a little bit of boost in Shanks or at least giving Shanks a little bit more options in play. And if you're a red purple Uta fan as myself, you definitely want to get these SRs. We'll talk about Buggy next, which Buggy has made a lot of noise in the One Piece trading card game community. I would say is one of those decks that I get the most comments on about how Buggy is underrated, Buggy beats the BDIF, Buggy is a tier 1 deck. And the most exciting thing for me personally is not necessarily these cards that are made specifically for the deck right here, but it's the fact that this promo is actually being reprinted in the starter decks. Originally like an $8 card before we got this revealed that was only exclusive in the pre-release events that you could play in for OP10, I think it was. Now you're going to be able to have plenty of these because they reprinted it, and it's going to be super accessible and super cheap if you don't have your playset already. But I will admit there are some cards that actually do boost up Buggy, but I'm not sure how much more viable it will get. It will definitely become better, but let's just go over them. First, we got the Moji here. This is a 4-cost 1000 power character. Seems really weak, but it's a 2k counter that is searchable, right? Definitely cannot complain about that. But if you have 2 or more characters with a base cost of 5 or more, this character gains blocker and +1 cost. Being able to have a chum blocker right on the field is annoying to get rid of, and especially with the added cost, it's even harder to get rid of a lot of times for a lot of decks. It even has an on KO effect of if your leader is Buggy and you have 3 or less cards in hand, draw 1 card. So if times are tough and you really just need a blocker on the field and maybe a little bit more draw to find that last piece you need in order to go for lethal in the next turn, if you've got low hand size, this Moji gaining blocker can help you fulfill that status of just seeing an extra card in your hand, especially when Buggy cheats out characters a lot of times. You'll have characters on the field that have a base cost of 5 or more. It might not be something you're playing a lot, but it's just a better Moji probably, or a better 2k option than some of the other ones that you have to just have in the deck. Now, there's another 4-cost 1000 power character in the Buggy. And once again, I think I said this in the set review video for OP12, but Hayakasen Sarena literally does not miss on these illustrations. This Buggy card looks insane. I can't wait to see this in person. This Buggy is a cross guild for Emperor's card with an activate main on it. You can trash 1 card from your hand and also this character, and if your leader is Buggy, you can play a cross guild character card with the cost of 6 or less from your hand. Now, if you want to talk about 6 or less cost characters that you can play off of this, I think the most notable one is Dracul Mihawk, right? This Dracul Mihawk SR from OP09 is a nice 6-cost 7000 power blocker, but the on play is draw 2, trash 1 from your hand. With trashing 1 card in hand, it really helps you filter out, even though it's a net -1 play, simply because, right, like you trash 1 card, right, since you play this Buggy from hand, that's -1. You trash the card from hand in order to use this Buggy activate main. Oh, actually, you got to play the Dracul Mihawk from your hand and then draw 2 cards and trash 1 card. Is this a -2, a net -2 card? I don't know if I really like that. I think I would just rather use leader effect and play down Dracul Mihawk. This card feels so bad. Wait, is there a reason to like play anything else? I don't know without looking at like the other cards. I guess I need to read the other cards, but this card just seems bad. Now let's talk about the 8-cost 7000 power Crocodile and Mihawk. This is a cross guild former Baroque works kind of card. This has an on play of draw 2, trash 1 from your hand. So a little bit of hand filtering, but after that, you can play a cross guild type character with the cost of 4 or less from your hand, which honestly is pretty nice in my opinion, because not only can you cheat this out on a 5-don turn to get a 7000 power character on field, but after filtering the hand, you could maybe find another ideal piece in your deck to be able to play off of this. It's literally like, it's kind of a net -2 again, right? Assuming that you're using leader effect, right? You're trashing 1 card, you're playing down Crocodile Mihawk, you're drawing 2 cards, but you're trashing 1 card, and then you're playing a 4-cost or less. But with the draw, I guess it doesn't really like, does it feel as bad? I don't know. But this also has a survivability type, right? Because if you have a cross guild type character that might be removed from the field from your opponent's effect, you can trash one card from your hand instead. Kabaji is a nice 2K as well for cost 1000 power. If you've got 2 or more characters with the base cost of 5 or more, this character gains blocker and +1 cost, very similar to the Moji. And then on opponent's turn, this character gains 5,000 power. So different to Moji, right? Moji just like draws a card on the on KO effect. This Kabaji at least makes it so it's a 6,000 power character on your opponent's turn, which could be pretty valuable as a blocker, right? Takes a little bit extra to be able to swing, block, and KO. Doesn't really have any attacking power, but similar to Moji, it might just be a better 2K that you replace out of your deck that you had prior. Now, Alvida, I think, has made the most noise out of any card in the Buggy deck. Alvida says if you have 2 or more characters with a base cost of 5 or more, this character gains +1 cost. And on the on play, if your leader is Buggy, draw 3 cards and trash 2 from your hand. You're probably not necessarily cheating out this Alvida, simply because with Buggy's leader effect, you have to rest 5 Dawn in order to do so. So on a 4 Dawn play, you go ahead, you slam down this Alvida, resting 4 Dawn, and then you get to draw 3, trash 2. It's a net 0 card, but with 3 cards, that's a lot of hand filtering, actually. You have a lot of possibilities. One of the things that I worry about overall, and I kind of tried to make a point on this for all the Buggy believers out there. First of all, I'm cheering for you all. I wish you all success, and I hope you all dominate the game so that I can cover the deck. But I feel like the problem with Buggy is not necessarily cheating out characters, it's that you run out of cards so quickly, right? Like you have to trash a card off of your leader effect in order to play the cross skill character from hand. But like a lot of these combos that you have turn out being a pretty decently sized net loss. Like where is the net gain outside of playing like Sanji's Pilaf? I think, do Buggy decks play Sanji's Pilaf? I feel like I've seen them once or twice. It's just one of those things that like, I don't know how you build up hand size outside of just literally taking life on swings. And maybe that's all you really need, right? You're kind of like a Blackbeard style deck to where like the life is your resource as a 5 life leader. And I mean, who knows? I'd be really curious to see where Buggy lands within the meta, especially with some of these new pieces. Like I think Kabaji or Moji could take place of potentially like a 2K in your deck, which could help out a lot. I think the Crocodile SR is pretty good. And Alvida is a pretty decent mid game as well, or beginning of the game. So like they can be pretty helpful. And maybe there's even the Buggy, right? Because Buggy for 4 Dawn, you can go in and play a 6, not necessarily utilizing your leader effect. You technically have 1 more Dawn that you can work with in that turn if you go ahead and like use Buggy. Buggy is definitely an interesting spot, I feel like, comparatively to everything else, because Buggy went from not very good, just like a local, really good local deck, or not even really good local deck is accurate. I feel like it's lower than that. I'm sorry. We've also got purple Black Luffy, which is pretty much a purple Luffy starter deck, except there's this vanilla Brook from starter deck 14 that's in here, because it has to be a purple and black deck. There has to be at least a black card. But anyways, there's some good reprints within here, like Gum Gum Giant, right, being one of the best cards in the game, and also this card just being one of the more expensive rares from the last like 3 sets or so will definitely tank its price a little bit if you didn't have them already. Instead of paying $4 for a playset, you probably could just buy a bulk for a playset for $1. But anyways, taking a look at some of these cards, we've got General Frankie here. It's an 8 cost, 10,000 power character. On play effect of Dawn -2. You can give up to 2 of your opponent's characters -2,000 power during the turn. I don't think this card is really that good overall, just simply because I think for 8-9 Dawn, there's just much better things to play. But for a starter deck, could be all right. Now, the Tony Choppa. It's a 3 cost, 4,000 power character that is also a blocker. And on the on play, Dawn -2, you can rest up to 1 of your opponent's Dawn cards or characters that have a cost of 1 or less. Especially because just this past tournament, we saw decks like Blue, Yellow, Nami play 1-drop pesky blockers. This Tony Chopper could be like a cool tech card in Black Purple Luffy, especially to be able to rest 1 of those characters, or against any purple deck, rest 1 for for the Gum Gum Giant that they've been saving. Especially with the Purple Black Luffy leader effect, right? You're going to be able to get those 2 Dawn back, one as active, one as rested. And at that point, you'll still have 8 Dawn to work with in a turn on a 10 Dawn turn, going maybe for lethal. This is definitely a cute card. Now, Robin has a 3-cost 4,000 power stat line, 2k counter on play, Dawn -2. If you do the on play, you can add up to 1 Dawn from your Dawn deck and set it as active. This is essentially a similar on play effect to Zoro, a rare that we got with the introduction of Purple Black Luffy in OP09 and is reprinted in this starter deck. It synergizes well with your leader effect being able to ramp, right? Because you do Dawn -2, and with the Robin effect or the Zoro effect, you get 1 of those back as active, and then through your leader effect, right, you get 2 Dawn back, making it 3 in total, where 2 out of the 3 Dawn are active. I've seen a lot of people think about this card and mess around with this card, and I've actually seen this card get a little bit replaced over Zoro, or at least in combination with Zoro, right? Especially on like the odd curve, it's very important to find one of these 2 cards. So especially because Nico Robin has a 2k counter stat line on it, it's debatable on if it's more powerful or less powerful than Zoro. I would imagine there might be a comment or 2 in this video about some people debating if Robin is better than Zoro in your deck. I definitely think this is an SR that you really need to explore and you really need to think about when you're deck building for Purple Black Luffy, because it feels like a lot of times you need this like early ramp to really be successful, right? Especially with what we saw in the recent Japan 3v3 where Purple Black Luffy's team made top 16. Let's talk about this 6-cost 7,000 power Monkey D. Luffy. It has an on play and when attacking effect doing Dawn -2. If you do that, if your leader is multicolored and your opponent has 5 or more Dawn cards on their field, your Straw Hat Crew type leader's base power becomes 7,000 until the end of your opponent's next end phase. Now, specifically, this is 7,000 power and not plus 2,000 power, because a lot of people have been talking about like Kid, for example. If you go ahead and you had this Luffy on field and did an attack, Dawn -2, you'd be able to make your leader 7,000 power, and especially maybe like Purple Black Luffy, you can get a little bit of that Dawn back, and if you had 7 or more after that attack, you could play down the Eustace Captain Kidd from starter deck 10 to make your leader get an extra 1,000 power to become an 8,000 power leader, which sounds pretty valuable, I think. Point being, 8,000 power is a pretty good number, I feel like a lot of times, but it's going to be curious of how relevant this card is in the deck. I think it's definitely best fit in Purple Black Luffy. I don't know if Green Purple Luffy would play this card. I don't know if Blue Purple Luffy would play this card. Green Purple Luffy would become 8,000, but it's probably not necessarily worth it because you have to Dawn -2 for that as well. That's just a lot of Dawn that's minused. It's probably, like I mentioned, best in Black Purple Luffy, where you at least get back a lot of that Dawn. But I think the one that's made the most noise that a lot of people are talking about is this Soba Mask in the Straw Hat Crew. I don't know who Soba Mask is, but apparently he's a Straw Hat member here soon. He's a 7-cost 9,000 power character, and if you have a Sanji or Sangoro character with 7,000 base power or more, this card in your hand is -5 cost. If you play this on the field, you can return all your Sangoro or Sanji characters to the owner's hand. Some people have talked about this infinite Sanji loop where like that Blue Purple Luffy could kind of abuse with this Soba Mask, to where you have the Eustace Captain Kidd on board, you go ahead, play 9-cost Sanji, flips over 9-cost Linlin, right, that you stacked on top of the deck because your leader effect, you do the Dawn -1, you get the Dawn back from Eustace Captain Kidd, so you have 2 Dawn active. You can go ahead and play Soba Mask on the field. Because you have a Sanji on the field, it costs -5, making it a 2-cost, and then that returns the 9-cost Sanji in the hand that you can use in the next turn. I don't really feel like that this is actually infinite, because eventually you run out of Sobas, but the idea of calling it infinite is that the game will end before you like run out of Sobas in your deck or whatever. But this is also a 4-card combo that you have to have, and Blue Purple Luffy's weren't playing Eustace Captain Kidd in their decks already. So is this combo actually worth it? I'm not 100% sure. But especially with blue-purple Sanji on the horizon right in OP12, there may be a world in which this Soba Mask card is actually pretty good because Sanjis, right? There's some good Sanjis in the game, especially ones with 7,000 power or more. I'm really curious about this card overall. A lot of people are excited for Black-Purple Luffy with the start of this starter deck, and a lot of people are really wanting to buy this starter deck especially since Purple Black Luffy's appearance, like I talked about in the Japan Spring 3v3 that happened just the other week. A lot of people think that Purple Black Luffy has a really good chance within the meta, especially with the upcoming cards in the Western format. And now let's talk about Blackbeard, the deck that was so good that we couldn't believe it was getting more cards with the starter deck. Blackbeard is getting a very good set of reprints, which I feel like are really like a core set of the starter deck in Van Augur, Burgess, Shuryu, Knights 2K, Stronger, Doc Q, Vasco Shot, Lafitte, Full-Lead. I feel like if you're gonna play in the like starter deck tournaments, you should just play the Blackbeard deck because like it's basically a Blackbeard deck without the 10 drops. Am I wrong? You've got your searches in Lafitte and Full-Lead. You got great cards in Burgess, Van Augur, Doc Q combos, good 2Ks in Shuryu and Stronger, and then also we'll talk about Katarina Devon here in a second. A chum blocker, like dang man, all you're missing is the 10 drop. But talking about some of the cards that Blackbeard gets, let's first talk about this one drop right here, Avalo Pizarro. One drop, 1000 power, 1k counter. Has an activate main once per turn of resting one of your full-lead cards, and if your leader has the Blackbeard Pirates type, this character gains plus 4,000 power during the turn with an on-KO effect of drawing a card. This is crazy in my opinion. Like, think about on a going second turn phase. Your first turn of the game, you play full-lead and you play Avalo Pizarro. Or not even that. Okay, let's go going first. Going first, you play Avalo Pizarro. Your opponent passes on their 2 Dawn turn. You go to 3 Dawn. You use one of your Dawn to play full lead. You don't search with full lead, but you use the activate main to rest that. And then on your 3 Dawn turn, you have a 7,000 power swing with lead if you're attaching the 2 Dawn onto it, right, that you have left over. And then you're swinging 5 with Avalo Pizarro. This is wild. I feel like you could actually play this in Blackbeard, but I really struggle with it because full lead is actually an insanely important card in Blackbeard, and getting it to stabilize, finding different pieces, building up the trash. So I don't know if it would ever be worth it in like the standard meta to actually use this card, but this card could be really crazy just being a 1-drop 5,000 power body that on KO draws a card. Now, Katarina Devon is another 1-drop, this one being a 2k counter, has an activate main of trashing the character, and if you have a Blackbeard Pirate type leader, give one of your opponent's characters -1 cost during the turn with an on KO effect of drawing a card. I feel like the on KO effect really doesn't matter on Katarina Devon because she's going to be trashing herself, right? If you play it to get that -1 cost. So like you're never KOing it unless your opponent is like, okay, I'll Doc Q your Katarina. That doesn't feel right, especially when I can just instead go like Stronger to -2 and at least like filter my hand a little bit. I feel like this card's not that good. Now, Kuzan is a former Navy Blackbeard Pirates type that's got a lot of people talking. 6 cost, 6,000 power, 1k counter. It is a blocker, and on the on KO effect, you can play a Blackbeard Pirates type character with the cost of 5 or less from your trash rested. People are especially excited about this because of something like playing the other Kuzan. If your opponent doesn't have any more like swings or maybe removal tactics that they can do, you can bring back this 5-cost Kuzan because this Kuzan doesn't have any name restrictions to then be able on your next turn to go ahead do like a little 5k swing, right? Use that activate main to trash the character, draw a card. So it's basically like netting a card. And you can play something like Burgess on the field, any 5 cost or less other than Kuzan. So it's like kind of an extra step, and maybe sometimes you just put Burgess down if you have enough cards built in trash, right? Because it could be like a 8,000 power character, 9,000 power character. But like, it's pretty crazy what you could potentially do in the Blackbeard deck with this. Now, San Juan Wolf, is that what his name is? He's a 4-cost 6,000 power 1k counter character with, if your leader has the Blackbeard Pirates type, this character gains blocker and +1 cost, for every 4 cards in your trash. I don't really see this being played in Blackbeard. I feel like it's like a mirror matchy kind of thing, just simply because it only really gains cost. And I guess it's really only influential in mirror matches to where, like, late in the game, you know, they can't just like Van Augur -3 and then Doc Q pop it, right, if it's like a 4 cost. But don't worry, in your Blackbeard deck, he has an on-play of trashing a card from your hand. I guess maybe to prevent other people from playing this card. I don't know. But this 7-drop 8,000 power SR Blackbeard has 2 different effects. One being the activate main. You can rest the character and KO up to one of your characters with the cost of 3 or less. It's literally a jack, but for Blackbeard Pirates, searchable. And alongside that, it has an on KO effect of adding 1 black card from your trash to your hand. Now, there's no condition other than it just being a black card. So in theory, when this gets KO'd, you can grab it back. You can just infinite loop these 7 drops, basically. You get 1 7-drop on the field, as long as it keeps getting KO'd, you can just infinite loop that son of a gun. Now, is that the right choice? That's up for question. I don't really know. But this also not being restricted to any kind of leader gives it a little bit of value of recursion in black decks overall, because again, it's just adding a black card from the trash. It's not adding a black card with the cost of 5 or less. It's not adding a Blackbeard Pirates black card. It is just a black card. This guy can be like the most meta in terms of these Blackbeard cards that are introduced in the starter deck and just played in a couple different archetypes. Now, we did get the reveal for the entire Bonnie deck, and at least at the time of this recording, it's not on like One Piece top deck, so I can't pull it up like I was in the other decks, but I will be giving you closer up versions and the ability for us to be able to read it one by one here in a second. But just looking at the overview of the deck, this is Jewelry Bonnie, right? You've got the More Pizza Event Searcher. One thing that I do really like about this is the EB01 Scratchman Apu. I know that this was put in like the tournament pack, so it has been reprinted before, but I believe that this is the first EB01 card to be reprinted as like its regular art. Hopefully that means that they're gonna reprint a lot of the stuff in PRB, like Secret Rare Bon Clay. But taking a look at these cards, let's look at Capone Beige over here first. It's a 2-cost 1,000 power 1k counter blocker, right? Nice little chum blocker in the Supernova Fire Tag Pirates type. On play, if you have 6 or more rested cards, draw 1, trash 1 from your hand. This is probably specifically meant not necessarily for the beginning of the game for these Supernova cards, but in the later stages of the game, right? Kind of in the mid to late game when you have a couple rested Dawn and maybe some rested characters and leaders alongside of it. Because as we talked about earlier, leader cards, character cards, and Dawn all consist of rested cards. If you need a chum blocker, this is the best thing that I think that this is really that good for, like searchable chum blocker in Supernova decks, which I don't really know if there are popular chum blockers outside of maybe like Killer from OP01. I do like that this has the hand filter draw 1, trash 1 though, so maybe you use it in replacement of Killer. The Cavendish over here, 4-cost 4,000 power 2k, end of turn set up to one of your Dawn cards as active. Really just think about this as a 2k counter, right? You don't really need to put it in play, especially as a 4,000 power character. If it was 5,000 power character, maybe I would say like, yeah, throw it in, take it out. But I feel like a lot of times I would just rather have my 2Ks be those Scratchman Apus, whether that's from EB01 or the original Supernova starter deck. X-Drake is the final non-SR new card in this. It's also a 2k, 5-cost 5,000 power. Has an on-play effect if your leader has the Supernova type. Rest up to one of your opponent's characters with the cost of 5 or less, and then set up to one of your Dawn cards as active at the end of this turn. This is much better, I feel like, than Basil Hawkins, honestly. Being able not only to set up one of your Dawn cards as active at the end of the turn, but also have have a little bit of extra power on it. And on top of that, rest a 5 cost or less character. I could see this not only be an option in something like Bonnie, right, because it does restand one of your Dawn cards, but also in something like Green Yellow Law, right? It's a 5-drop supernova, really synergizes with the leader effect and the different cards that you have and build around, but as well as being a searchable 2K that also has kind of like the end game potential of resting a 5 cost or less blocker. There's not really too many blockers, I feel like, that are more than 5 costs. And especially because you could cheat this out, right, with your Green Yellow Law effect, it could feel pretty good to just use this at the end game. I really like this card. We'll talk about Kid and Killer now down here, one of the SRs. This is Supernova Kid Pirates, 1K counter, 2 cost, 2,000 power. So not necessarily a strong body, but I really like the effects on this character. Let's talk about them. Primarily the on play. You look at the top 5 cards of your deck, reveal up to 1 Supernovas type card, add it to your hand, place the rest in the bottom of your deck in any order. Especially with Green Yellow Law, searching is so important in the deck. The more that you get to search with either like the 1-drop Luffy or Bonnie or something like that, the better your games typically go, right? Being able to set up the hand, being able to find certain pieces that you're going to need throughout the game, and having access to another searcher such as Kid and Killer can be really, really nice for, you know, your shambling effect. Just as I mentioned, like more consistent searching. I don't really see this played in Bonnie, but if you move into going on like more towards an even curve and you don't want to play the 1-cost jewelry Bonnie, I guess that's the only reason I can think of. Maybe just having more searchers outside of the 1-cost jewelry Bonnie, you throw in this Kid Killer. It has an on-play effect, so Marshall D. Teach can kind of shut it off, but that's if they do it at the beginning of the game. You can also, on opponent's attack with this card, trash the character and set up to one of your Dawn cards as active. That's more towards the Bonnie effect, I feel like, not necessarily the Green Yellow Law. But if Green Yellow Law has those counter events like Vroom, being able to give you 3,000 power for a battle and then set up a 5 cost or lower character as active, this could be really nice for if you just have it on the field and you don't need it anymore, right? Because especially as a 2,000 power character, you're probably not swinging. And honestly, what you could do is if your opponent is like using searchers and then you have this on the field, you could maybe swing into their like little 1-drop searcher or something like that. And then on the defensive side, when your opponent swings into this, you can kind of like bait a swing and then use this Kid and Killer effect to trash itself, negate the attack in general, and also get a Dawn up as active for something like Vroom. I think this SR is really neat. There's a lot of interesting things that you can do with this. And then a big 10 cost is in this set. Minx Supernova Heart Pirates. So really interesting, especially with the Minx type as well. You can really get Carrot involved in this. And I think a lot of people are actually thinking of Carrot with this 10-drop character. It's 11,000 power of Law and Beppo with an on-play of resting one of your opponent's characters and saying that that character will not become active during your opponent's next refresh phase. So entirely freezing one of your opponent's characters. There is no condition on the character that you can rest, so it's a guaranteed freeze. Then if your opponent has 2 or more rested characters, your leader gains plus 2,000 until the end of your opponent's next end phase. This is a really neat boss monster in my opinion. I definitely agree with a lot of people's sentiment of something like Carrot, right? With Carrot being able to freeze multiple characters or have multiple different freezing strategies, a lot of times your opponent is going to have 2 or more rested characters, and especially because this Law and Beppo rests one character that goes into the 2 or more rested characters. This effect is probably really easy to get off in order to become a 7,000 power leader, which we've seen lately how strong becoming a 7,000 power leader can be. For other decks like Bonnie and stuff like that, I'm not 100% sure it's better than something like the 10-drop Doflamingo. It is searchable comparatively to the 10-drop Doflamingo, and with a 10-drop Doflamingo, you have to wait for your opponent's characters to turn sideways, where this is more proactive, right? And if your opponent is kind of waiting for you to play that 10-drop first and not necessarily swinging or playing this like weird game, boom, you can go in and be more proactive with the Law and Beppo. I don't think it's something that's going to push Bonnie over the edge and make it like the best deck in format, even though I feel like it's a pretty good call right now in the OP11 format, but it might help you out in a couple different matchups if you slot a couple of these in. Definitely not a bad starter deck at all, right? I mean, there's some good stuff. It kind of feels like more of a green-yellow Lost starter deck with these new cards that are introduced, but still pretty decent in my opinion. We've also gotten the reveal of the Yamato starter deck, right? Green, yellow, Yamato, and some interesting reprints in here in terms of all of these down here. This is starter deck 13 Yamato, which I thought was really interesting, getting one of the more recent starter decks. But also, especially as a starter deck, there are so many like play trigger bodies in here. Play this card, 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 play this card. You are probably a menace in the release events. And it's also like a yellow Yamato starter deck, and then there's this funny like Odyssey Ace in here, which I thought was pretty cute. It's funny, the Monkey DD Luffy over on Twitter, she posted this meme like, what is the polar bear doing in Arlington, Texas? I thought it was really funny. Looking at some of the individual cards that are new in this deck, let's take a look at the Yamato. This 1-drop Yamato is a 1k counter 0 power character, but Dawn times 2 your turn, this character gains plus 3,000 power. That means that with the 2 Dawn, you can make this 0 power character 5,000 on the attack. Honestly, especially for an aggressive deck like Yamato, where you want your opponent to kind of go down to 3 or less life as soon as possible for you to get that second effect on your leader, that's a pretty good effect for your little 1-drop. A big thing that I like about it though is the on play. You can look at the top 5 cards of your deck, reveal a Wano type card and add it to your hand, put the rest at the bottom of your deck in any order. This I feel like is pretty good. This honestly like might be better than Momonosuke, I feel like, because the Momonosuke is technically a 2 Dawn play where Yamato is a 1 Dawn play. Yamato also can find itself, I believe. I'm trying to look. I'm pretty sure this Yamato can find itself. But anyways, just finding Wano cards within that top 5 is just a nice, cheap searcher that the deck can utilize, especially on the first turn of the game. I think Yamato is the only like yellow Wano kind of deck, whether you want to use starter deck 9 Yamato or the one from OP06. So just like a small buff that it can utilize, honestly. The Izo here's another nice character within this deck. Dawn times 2, the character gains blocker, but with the on play, your Wano type leader gains banish in the turn. So this is effectively a searchable Onami within your deck. Yamato typically playing Onami because especially with a leader that has double attack, you get really aggressive, swing really high numbers at face with leader. Having both double attack and banish is crazy value for Yamato if you can get that to hit. So having this searchable option in the Izo can provide a lot of benefits, and especially when, let's just hypothetically say like on a 3 Dawn turn. I don't think this would totally happen on a 3 Dawn turn, but just humor me. On a 3 Dawn turn, you have your first opportunity to attack in the game. You go ahead against a 5 life leader and you play down this Izo to give your Yamato leader banish. Then with the 1 extra Dawn that you have, you can attach it to lead, swing 6, double attack, and banish. If your opponent hypothetically took that attack, they would be at 3 life from 5, and therefore you can use your leader effect to put the 2 Dawn that you paid for Izo onto the Izo to make it a blocker. The Izo has really nice synergy with your leader effect, and I think is a really, really cool combo. But especially with the Onami trigger on it, being able to KO a character, I'm not 100% convinced that Izo is better than Onami. I think that it's good, and I think that it has value. And there's also values that are different than Onami, because this Ezo could be a blocker, but I would definitely need some testing with the deck and some people that are much more knowledgeable around the card to be able to answer that question. We also saw that the Yamato deck is getting a new 2K Kinemon. This Wano Akaza 9 Kinemon is a 4-cost 5,000 power character that also right here has the ability, if your opponent's had 3 or less life, to play the card. I love this actually for Yamato. This is a very subtle upgrade to the Yamato deck overall. This, in my opinion, replaces Satori, or at least you do it in addition with Satori maybe. It's definitely a 2K that you want to play, specifically because this is searchable, right? Satori is Sky Island. That is for the Enel Sky Island package, but with the body just being really nice to be able to play and Satori just being a pretty good 2K, I feel like overall for a lot of yellow decks. It's been placed in Yamato, but with this Kinemon, the same amount of power that you can cheat out and play on the field, especially if your opponent's had 3 or less life, which happens pretty easily with Yamato, and in a blue-purple Luffy format, it can happen anytime. You're going to be able to find this Kinemon to replenish the counter in your hand, as well as play this guy on the field. On top of that, if he's in your starting hand, he's also a slash type character, which is super important if you remember of this Dracula Mihawk, right? From starter deck 12, if Yamatos decide to still play this Dracula Mihawk, Mihawk can cheat out a slash type attribute with a cost of 4 or less other than itself onto the field, which I really like this. There's 2 more cards that we're going to talk about really quickly, one being Asura Doji. This is a 1K Land of Wano Akaza 9, 3-cost 3,000 power character. If your leader has the Land of Wano type and your opponent has 3 or more life cards, you can K up to one of your opponents with a base cost of 5 or less. This, in my opinion, is also like kind of crazy. We have a 3 cost that KOs a 5 cost. You remember when people went crazy on the reveals of OP10 with the Dressrosa Zoro being a 4 cost that KOs a 4 cost? Well, now we have a 3 cost KOing a 5 cost. I think this card is pretty good, but I think especially with the 3 or more life cards function, it's probably checked a little bit to where like you can't use it at the beginning of the game, but being able to KO a 5 cost when there are such good 5 cost blockers within the format, just for 3 you have a KO effect. And the last card of the starter decks that I'll talk about is Kozuki Momonosuke. Momonosuke? Is that how you say it? This is a Kozuki clan and Land of Wano type card, 6 costs, 7,000 power. Your turn, if you have 2 or less life cards, your leader gains 1,000 power. So in the later stages of the game, and this is also your turn, so if this character lives for multiple turns, it's not an on-play effect. This is any turn that's on the field, or I should say any time it's your turn when it's on the field. So you can consistently be a 6,000 power leader on the offensive side, which is huge for being able to match something like blue-purple Luffy, or maybe green-purple Luffy, right? Any leader that is 6K. You also have an activate main effect that's once per turn. You can return 2 of your currently given Dawn cards to your cost area rested, which is an extremely unique requirement. I don't think we have a requirement like this in the game. You can give this character rush and 1,000 power during the turn, making it an 8,000 power rush body. Especially when you talk about utilizing your leader effect, right? This has perfect synergy with the Yamato leader effect. You play this guy down on the field, you use Yamato's leader effect to give 2 Dawn that you rested for this guy to another character, right? Maybe that 1 cost Yamato that we talked about earlier. You go ahead and you do a little 5K check swing. They counter out of that. You can then use this activate main to take that Dawn off of that Yamato after you already swung with it, right? Because it's just attached Dawn. It's not doing anything anymore. To give this character the ability to attack on the turn that it's played and also be an 8K. Now, you can't like reutilize Yamato's leader effect again, but you still got to utilize the Dawn from the leader effect. And I mean, when characters get KO'd anyway, the Dawn is useless after you swing with it and stuff like that. So it's like, this is also a really cool SR in my opinion. I don't know how many Yamato would play, but I do think that this is a card to definitely take in consideration when deck building in this upcoming format with the starter decks in OP11, because especially as an 8,000 power character on the attack and any turn that it lives as well, this is an activate main. The rush may not matter on the second turn that this card is on the field, but the plus 1,000 power will always be relevant. And so, especially because we've talked about a couple cards in this video as well, where leaders are getting bumped to 7,000 power, the Momonosuke forcing like at least a 2K out of the hand with this effect is pretty good to be able to keep up with those decks. I'm a huge fan of the Yamato starter deck overall. And that's going to be all the starter decks that we see. And if there's, for whatever reason, any changes, I'll leave them in the comments down below. If maybe they it was a fake reveal or something like that, but I think these cards are pretty true, especially the last two. It's going to be really interesting to see how these starter decks alongside OP11 impact the format, and we've got plenty of Western content and also Eastern OP12 content coming on the channel soon. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video and hope to see you in the next one. We'll see you later.